if you have to have a meeting with a company in, say, Sydney, instead of flying over there, you might be able to sit in a boardroom and actually have an intelligent conversation rather than huddling around a little computer trying to Skype to each other and really not getting anywhere. This will be proper high-definition video conferencing over that system, and that'll be a paid service on top of your broadband, most likely. This is a future thing that probably probably by 2015, I think they'll have pricing. That's what they're indicating. All these figures will probably change depending on what politicians in power at the time. I guess the other thing is it should explode the market even further with cloud computing, and that's really where it's going to enable you to get a really fast interaction with cloud services rather than trying to get 10 people, 20 people in your office trying to jump down the line and grab a good experience off a cloud service now, which might work for you in some instances, but it might probably not as fast as what you do if you get if you have a server in house. E-learning is another one where it could be a very big cost saver, like the video conferencing, where you can engage with learning companies that might be based in Sydney. So instead of sending 10 of your staff across to Sydney or Melbourne or somewhere for a big training course because they don't do it in Perth, e-learning will be provided, like high-definition video feeds and high-definition links to lecturers and so forth will be something they're going to be pushing. And that's a big win for small business. It's a very expensive exercise, as if you had to send half your staff or yourself have to go across to interstate to study. It's a big job. And the obvious ones like improved reliability of the service and speed, that's instant for compared to the copper networks available now. And it really does open the door for small business growth to compete on a more level playing field with the big guys who can afford fibre links now. Brings me to the next, port of call, which is cloud computing. I won't go over too much the definitions of it because really you ask, each person sort of has their own sort of spin on it. I'll leave that to you to Google and have a look at the different definitions. But the three logical areas I see, and a lot of where it's broken down into, the three main areas, then the ones you're probably most familiar with is the software as a service kind of cloud-based solutions where your Salesforce, your MYOB Online, Google Apps, Office 365, those sort of packages you probably call software as a service, where you can go in quite easily, relatively easily configure the packages yourself and get going. The other two services are more technical, where you probably have technical staff looking after those. So platform as a service might entail sort of your website, CMS and backend, where your web developers look after that kind of product, and that's where they might be more interested. Infrastructure as a service is more of a sort of replacing your in-house hardware with cloud-based servers, so virtual servers that run on shared hardware platforms. So such as you might have a Windows server now running your domain, you might have a terminal server and so forth. In the future, or you can do it now, there are plans available if you have the internet speeds to do it. You can actually go and put your servers virtually on the cloud, access them from wherever you like. Saves on capital costs, so it's good for startup companies who want to save on sort of capital expenditure. It can be a hard move from a hardware server to a cloud computing service because of network speeds. So if you are considering going down the cloud path, or I should say up the cloud path, there's a lot of things you really should consider and plan for. I think things like the obvious questions, being in the IT side of the world, is disaster recovery. Make sure that the product has good disaster recovery record and they have good disaster recovery practices in place. Do they replicate data from Perth to Sydney, Sydney to Melbourne, maybe internationally? Do they also offer a service level agreement or an SLA to compensate for downtime? So they might register that they have a 99.99% uptime, which is pretty good. That means a couple of hours a year, I think. Most of them at the moment are about 99.9. It gives them a few days a year they can go down. So you've got to look at what fits your business needs. Another one people ask is, and should know about, is where is your data kept? So being cloud, you throw your data up. You actually don't. If you don't know where it is, it's a potential risk for your business. I mean, you might have to store it in Australia for legal reasons, for instance. I don't know what. It depends on who. I guess what your data entails. The other thing, obviously, security and privacy. Make sure they have a decent track record and they don't give away your details. You know, they don't. They haven't had breach of security where people have stolen credit card details, things like that. And make sure if they have any events that obviously they've done things to rectify it. And I guess coming back to the NBN, is your connection fast enough yet? These are things you need to do in the testing phase. Make sure you get a decent performance out of it. Another point with cloud computing, a lot of people tend to miss out, I have seen in the past, is because it's a cheaper service, you do save a lot of capital costs. They forget to do things like train the staff properly on it. It's just treat it like a normal software product. I know most of you probably will anyway. And make sure you train your staff. Have a good training program in place. Make sure you plan for training. And then obviously the next point, which is the most important, is make sure you plan everything. Plan the migration. Make sure you can export and import your data in and out of the cloud service. It's a good idea if you can do that. And once again, test. Make sure you test the product thoroughly. Make sure it works well on your computers. Make sure it works well on your network connection. And most of the companies out there that offer cloud solutions will give you 30-day, 60-day, 90-day trial to really hammer the software. Make sure it fits your business processes, your needs, and you're not wasting your time and money swapping from an in-house piece of software that does everything you need it to do to try and save money to go up to the cloud and find out it doesn't do exactly what you want. So really test and plan. Can't sort of go over that enough. It comes to the point where in the future, and I get asked this all the time about tablets and iPhones and connectivity between the softwares. It's a question that's just popping up more and more. People want to know, what should I get, an iPad or should I get an Android? These are questions that come up a lot. If you're going to go to a cloud-based solution, make sure they've got an Android app or an iPhone app. Most companies now have both because they know that there's a bit of a split between that market. So do your research on smartphones and tablets, so make sure you're covered. There seems to be a trend of new businesses and new business models starting up with cloud computing, really saving money on startup costs. Things like, I'll give you an example of a client of mine. They've just recently moved to Google Apps, and I'll just give you a bit of story about them. They started out about 2.5 years ago working from home. There was two staff full-time working from home doing sort of business consulting. And they started to grow pretty rapidly. Within 6 months, they had about 6 or 7 staff, and they were using a pretty clunky old email system, emailing each other back and forward, updating schedules and so forth. It was pretty cumbersome. So we started to look at sort of products that will suit them, and they were keeping on growing. And about a year and a half ago, a year ago, they were up at about the 20 user mark. Now they're up at about 25 users. Now, so about 8 months ago, we looked at a whole different range of products from Office 365. We even looked at they even looked at hiring or leasing a premises to have a server in place and all that sort of stuff, and have people come in. And the business model, we discussed the different business models, and she really wanted to keep the business at home and have everyone working from home rather than coming into a place of business and always having to have this, this lease over their head. So this is a company now that's 25, probably heading up on 30 users very shortly, and expanding into another state. And they entirely run off Google Apps and desktops. They've got about 2 desktop computers, mostly notebooks. I think they've got about 5 notebooks in office in their inventory, but the rest are running off iPads and smartphones. And there's Google Apps. Google Apps will run on your iPad very well. And that business model now is that they pay $5 per user per month. And that's it. That's their IT infrastructure costs, obviously, and the hardware, rather than spending 10 grand, 15 grand on a server installation in a premises. It suits them very well. 10 years ago, they probably would have had to get an office and a server and so forth. So it just shows you where things are heading, and gives the flexibility of small business to really compete with an enterprise level package very cheaply. So I guess to sum up, just cloud computing, just don't rush into it. Do your research. Obviously test the product thoroughly. sign up for the free trials. Make sure you get the free stuff while you can. Look up case studies on the software relating to your business sort of size and what industry you're in, and talk to people who are already using the systems. And obviously don't forget to plan for training and also plan the migration as well. I know this is a bit of it feels like a bit of a rushed overview of sort of cloud computing, but there's so much to it. I guess I want to leave the floor open to some questions now about, if you've got any questions on cloud computing or the National Broadband Network.